Most people believe more money would simply make their life better. The science suggests it will make them a different person entirely. The debate over wealth is ancient, but the neuroscience is new, and it reveals a truth that both defenders and critics of capitalism find uncomfortable. Money alters your brain's hardware, changing how you think, how you feel, and how you perceive others. Where do you stand? By the end of this, you might reconsider your answer. The strongest argument for wealth is the freedom it buys. Freedom from stress. Your brain is a survival machine, and for most of human history, its primary job was scanning for threats. A missed bill, a car repair you can't afford, the looming dread of rent. These are modern-day predators. They trigger a constant low-grade release of cortisol. This chemical bath of chronic stress impairs long-term planning. It damages memory formation. It literally shrinks your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive function and impulse control. Scarcity hijacks your attention. It's been shown to temporarily lower effective IQ by as much as 13 points. That's the cognitive cost of being poor. Money acts as a powerful antidote. When you remove the constant threat of financial insecurity, you free up massive amounts of cognitive bandwidth. The background hum of anxiety fades. Your brain can finally shift from a short-term reactive mode to a long-term strategic one. You have the mental space to learn a new skill, plan a business, or simply be present with your family. It's a cognitive upgrade. You aren't just less stressed, you are functionally smarter, more creative, and more capable of building the life you want. That sounds like a clean and simple good, but the brain is an adaptation machine. It quickly gets used to its new, stress-free baseline, and the changes that follow are much more complicated. One of the most replicated findings in social psychology is the inverse relationship between wealth and compassion. In a famous experiment from UC Berkeley, researchers rigged a game of Monopoly. One player was given twice the money, collected twice the salary for passing go, and rolled 2 dice instead of 1. The game was explicitly unfair. Within minutes, the rich players began to change. They moved their pieces more loudly, slamming them on the board. They displayed dominant body language. They even ate more pretzels from a shared bowl. After the game, when asked why they had won, they almost never mentioned the rigged setup. They talked about their brilliant strategy, their smart decisions, their skill. They attributed their success to their own inherent qualities and their opponent's failure to a lack of those same qualities. This is a cognitive bias called dispositionalism. The brain of a wealthy person begins to systematically explain away the role of luck, privilege, and circumstance. It builds a narrative where the world is fair and everyone gets what they deserve. This makes it easier to rationalize inequality. Why help the person struggling on the street? Their situation is likely their own fault. The same brain circuits that create this justification also show reduced activity when viewing images of human suffering. Empathy doesn't just become a choice, it becomes neurologically expensive. So, does money just turn you into a sociopath? The reality is more subtle. The same psychological distance that dulls compassion might be necessary for large-scale decision-making. A CEO, laying off 500 people to save a company of 50,000, cannot afford to feel the individual pain of every single person. They must operate from a systems-level perspective. An investor allocating millions of dollars must focus on data and returns, pulling back from the emotional stories of individual companies. This psychological detachment, this ability to see people as nodes in a system, is a hallmark of leadership in complex organizations. The same trait that makes someone a worse neighbor might make them a more effective founder or general. And yet, the other side has its own blind spot. The brain's reward system treats money like a drug. When you get an unexpected bonus, win a trade, or see your account balance jump, your brain's nucleus accumbens lights up. It releases a flood of dopamine, the same neurochemical involved in pleasure, motivation, and addiction. The first hit feels incredible. The problem is tolerance. The rush you got from your first $10,000 in savings will require $100,000 to replicate, then $1 million. This is the hedonic treadmill. Each new level of wealth becomes the new normal, and the satisfaction quickly fades. This can create a state of perpetual wanting. You are running faster and faster just to feel the same. The pursuit of financial security ironically leads to a new kind of profound insecurity, a constant fear of losing what you have, and an insatiable hunger for more. This creates a paradox. The very thing you chase for a feeling of peace can become the source of your greatest anxiety. But what if the neurological outcome depends entirely on how you frame the purpose of money? The debate shifts from what wealth does to you to what you do with wealth. Consider two people, both with a net worth of $50 million. The first sees money as a score. Their primary motivation is status. They buy the bigger yacht, the faster jet, the house that eclipses their rivals. Every purchase is a move in a competitive game. Their brain is optimized for social comparison, dominance, and threat detection. The dopamine hit comes from winning, from being seen as superior. The second person sees money as a tool. Their motivation is agency. They use their capital to fund a new ring for a children's hospital. They start a scholarship for underprivileged students. They invest in a risky but potentially world-changing clean energy startup. Their brain is optimized for legacy, connection, and creative problem-solving. The dopamine hit comes from seeing their actions create tangible, positive outcomes in the world. The same $50 million is flowing through two completely different neural circuits. One reinforces ego and isolation. The other reinforces purpose and connection. This puts the burden of choice back on the individual. It suggests you can consciously decide which pathway to strengthen. But is it really that simple? Can you just decide to be the generous philanthropist when every advertisement, every social media feed, and every cultural signal is screaming that money is the score? Our society is a massive, relentless machine for promoting social comparison. The watch you wear, the car you drive, the neighborhood you live in, they are all signals in a status game that most of us are playing, whether we admit it or not. Resisting that pull requires a level of conscious effort that few can sustain. The default path is the path of comparison, and that path often leads to a strange, gilded prison. Extreme wealth can be profoundly isolating. It erects an invisible wall between you and the lived experience of almost every other human on the planet. Your problems are different, your worries are unrelatable. Friendships can feel transactional, shadowed by the suspicion that people want something from you. You start to doubt the authenticity of your relationships. This social isolation is toxic to the human brain. It's a stronger risk factor for mortality than smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness increases inflammation, disrupts sleep, and accelerates cognitive decline. The freedom from financial anxiety can be replaced by a deep, gnawing social anxiety. You've escaped the stress of survival only to find yourself trapped in the stress of suspicion. It seems like an impossible trade-off. It appears you either struggle with scarcity or you struggle with the psychological corrosion of abundance. But there is a potential override switch. The research points toward two powerful, counterintuitive behaviors: pro-social spending and the active pursuit of awe. When people are given money and instructed to spend it on themselves, they report a small, fleeting boost in happiness. But when they are instructed to spend that same amount on someone else, buying a gift, donating to a charity, their reported happiness is significantly higher and lasts much longer. Brain scans show that giving money away activates reward centers with more power and consistency than acquiring it. It seems we are hardwired to find joy in contribution. The second part of the antidote is awe. Experiences of awe standing at the edge of the Grand Canyon, looking up at a star-filled sky, getting lost in a piece of transcendent music, have a consistent effect on the brain. They quiet the default mode network, the part of the brain associated with self-referential thought and ego. In moments of awe, your sense of self shrinks and you feel connected to something larger. This directly counteracts the self-focus, entitlement, and social isolation that wealth can breed. It recalibrates your perspective. It reminds you that you are a small part of a very large system, a perspective that dispositionalism actively erases. This all sounds like a simple prescription. To avoid the psychological traps of wealth, just be generous and go look at some mountains. But this ignores the core of the problem. It requires using the drug to cure the addiction. It means taking the very resource that reinforces your ego and using it in an ego-dissolving way. It means fighting against the new default settings that wealth has painstakingly installed in your brain. It is an act of rebellion against your own neurology. So what does this really mean for you? It means the goal of getting rich is dangerously incomplete. The real question is what kind of person you are becoming in the process. Money is a current that will carry you somewhere. It will amplify your default tendencies. If you are insecure, it will give you more elaborate ways to display your status. If you are generous, it will give you a larger shovel. But it is never neutral. It is always shaping the user. It grants you the freedom to choose your life, but it also subtly biases the chooser. The tool changes the hand that wields it. The neuroscience suggests that wealth isn't a destination. It's a crossroads. One path leads to more freedom, more agency, and a greater capacity to shape the world. The other path leads to more isolation, more comparison, and a constant gnawing hunger for more. Both paths are paved with the same goal. So where do you draw the line? If acquiring wealth rewires the very person who acquires it, how do you gain the resources without losing yourself? At what point does the tool you're using